What's the dumbest thing you got in trouble for in school? My teacher once asked us to write down our favorite thing to do. I wrote sleeping with my mom. This resulted in a beating with my parents. I was in 2nd grade. I obviously just meant cuddling and taking a nap. My mom thought that the teacher was insane. Someone accidentally broke a window. He made no attempt to hide and admitted fault immediately. The whole class got Saturday detention. That's so stupid. When I was in grade 3, a friend of mine got bullied by people I knew from daycare. They cut her hair, her belt, and just continuously called her names. By the end of recess she was in tears. Brought her to the office. At that point the principal pinned the whole dang thing on me because apparently they took my scissors to do this to her. The school got everyone's side and none of them even included my name. At one point the principal even asked me, "So what role did you play in this?" To which I responded, "Nothing. I had literally just walked her to the office to get her help." They wound up calling my mom anyway and telling her I was the ringleader of this whole event and made me sit in the office all afternoon until 4 p.m, at which point my daycare supervisor got me and gave me a hug. I spent the rest of the night in tears and nearly wound up grounded. Apparently my mom started out extremely pissed at me until her friends and my daycare supervisor told her to ask me my side first because that would be completely out of character for me. Always had trouble trusting the school system after that. Got yelled at during a physics class because I was the first to stand up to go start the lab we were doing. 7-8 other kids were midway through standing up, but because I was the first I had to get yelled at for 5 minutes in front of everyone. I called this kid a trapezoid in 2nd grade. He was very upset and got me in trouble. Crying. It was my first day of school at a new school. 5th grade. Some kids wouldn't let me play with them at recess. The girl who was supposed to show me around and be my friend for the day completely abandoned me. I was overwhelmed and I hadn't wanted to move schools at all. I go in for recess, still upset and by myself, and Miss B over here takes me outside the class to lecture me for crying, saying she doesn't like crying and doesn't enjoy having to deal with it. I have no reason to cry, etc. Literally just making me even more upset. Does not even try to ask why I am crying. Everybody in the classroom could hear what she was saying. I hope that witch is having a bad time. She probably hated her life then and hates it more now. If you don't like crying, what the frick are you doing in an elementary school? Frick her. Reading a book. I would finish my work in class and pull out a book to read and be told to put it away and lay my head down if I'm done. They would have rather me just lay my head down and stare at a wall than continue to learn through reading. A runner-up. My homework slipped off my desk and got sucked into one of those stupid huge air conditioner units. The teacher didn't believe me, so I had to stick my hand up the vent of this thing and try to fish it out. I have no idea how dangerous this was, but it doesn't seem like a good idea now. I managed to get it and it was torn down the middle with a huge grease stain. He made me stay after class and redo it and I narrowly avoided detention. All because a piece of paper slipped off my desk. A friend of mine got yelled at for reading in English class. She finished a test early because she is brilliant and pulled out whatever Dostoevsky she was reading for fun. Apparently she was distracting other students. Our nutty teacher was the one distracting us. I walked into the showers in the locker room before gym class, fully clothed with shoes on and everything. I had just never seen that area before. Showers weren't running. That's literally it. Got yelled at and got detention for it because apparently we weren't supposed to be in there. This happened at my school too. A couple of kids would stand by the showers after they changed cause the room was so crowded. They were given 50% for the marking period and they put a fence up and chained it shut. Cause it's so smart to force a bunch of sweaty little teenagers to stand on top of each other when we only have 3 minutes to change clean up before the bell. Happened in primary school. We were taking a break from our boys dance group and I went into the toilets to take a crap. Went into a cubicle and another boy from the same group was pee. However, he felt like I invaded his privacy by walking in on his unlocked cubicle. He was also facing away from me obviously, so I saw nothing. He complained and cried to the teacher accusing me of perving and I was told off for harassment. I also didn't get the free ice block that we'd usually get after each practice. To this day I still hate that kid. Yeah, he's definitely a dickhead for that one. Given an after-school detention for whistling. I can't whistle. My friend has diabetes, and when we were in school I sat next to him in class. He told me his blood sugar was really low and he felt faint. He didn't want to leave class, so I offered to give him my banana. So I gave it to him and the teacher scolded me for taking out food in class. She sent me to the principal's office even after I told her the reason for it. The principal teacher just didn't care and told me just chill here until the bell rings, lol. I'll never know why Mrs. Henderson was so angry. In grade 12, a classmate was eating a banana in class. Technically not allowed, but no big deal. Teacher stops class, calls his dad from the in-class phone. I don't know how she had the number memorized, and we all got to enjoy half a conversation that went like, number, I'm not going to apologize. It's a banana. Literally looking at someone. Apparently it was aggressive. When I was in primary school, I had really bad social anxiety, so my teacher allocated a small table outside the classroom where I could go if I was having a panic attack. This was somewhat effective until I got a new teacher who would send me out to the table at the slightest provocation. Fiddling with my hair, jogging my leg, or smiling when I thought of something funny all got me a trip to the table. She didn't do this to anyone else. They would stand in the corner of the classroom if they got in trouble. She would also write every trip to the table in my diary as a panic attack or poor behavior, which meant my anxiety medication dosage was changed. Eventually, the system stopped working altogether, as the table was more of a punishment and being sent to it would worsen any stress I was experiencing. That's horrible. Seems that teacher was bullying you because you were vulnerable. I was sitting on a big trash can and the principal walked up and told me to get down. I did. Then he asked, "Do you sit on furniture at your house?" I looked at him kind of puzzled and said yes. He gave me detention for answering a question about sitting on furniture at my house. I got in trouble for saying out loud that I didn't like someone. Her friend overheard, told our teacher, and for the next 3 days we all had to spend our recess talking about why I didn't like that person. Because she makes a big deal out of silly things like this that cause everyone to miss out on recess. Also, people are allowed to not like other people. It happens. If you're not being mean about it, I don't understand why it's a problem. In 2nd grade, a boy who didn't like me told the teacher that I was taking rocks out my pockets and throwing them at him during recess. I get brought to the principal's office and told to apologize to him, where I started crying and showed them I didn't even have pockets. I was wearing leggings. I still had to apologize. Having to apologize for something you never did was the worst and most annoying thing as a kid. I asked how bananas reproduce. My teacher didn't find it appropriate. It was in biology class. I will never understand how some teachers are just unable to laugh at funny crap. Such a miserable life to live. Wearing colored socks. I got sent to the principal's office where they called my parents and asked them to get me a pair of white socks. Needless to say, my parents were both working, so I was stuck roaming around the school sockless. High school, late 90s. We just got the internet. This was the early days of the internet where any random or innocent search could still bring up P. Well, it happened to me. Our history class had a computer lab. P came up on my screen. Immediately sent to the office. They did not believe me that it was an accident, but I'd never been in trouble before. I was suspended the rest of the day. I just went home. Then it started happening to other students' teachers. Then they finally put filters on the computers, but I was never apologized to. Frickin' whitehouse.com would get kids every time. This might be common, but my high school had a very odd attendance policy. If you were late to school 3 times, you would immediately get detention. I had detention once because of this, and I decided it wasn't for me. So anytime I knew I was going to be late, I'd just skip. If you missed enough, they'd put you on a medical watch sort of thing that would require a doctor's excuse. But you had to miss a lot of school for that to happen. So senior year I spent a lot of days hanging out at home or at my friends playing Mario Kart, because the school rewarded absenteeism over tardiness. Mine has the same policy. I was kicked out of my geometry class and was given a referral that said do not return to class until a parent-teacher conference is scheduled. This all happened because I had the wrong size paper. This teacher wanted everyone to have 8.5 x 11 inches and I had 8 x 10.5 inches. I kept getting 50% credit on every assignment because I had the wrong size paper. I finally told her I'm not buying all new paper because you want to be special. Skipping school. Punished by being suspended from school. Brilliant plan. Those extra hours of wow really showed me. Similarly, I got detention for not doing my homework. That is, I wasn't being productive enough with my time. In detention, you couldn't do anything except stare into nothingness. So when I got home, I had even less time to do homework. My school had a no touching policy, so I got in trouble for hugging my best friend in the hallway. My teacher sent me to the principal's office for saying crap. I was trying to say sit. I had a speech impediment. Dang, that sucks. Wearing shoes without laces. They were closed toe but apparently they must also lace. I got sent home for not having laces. Standing up to a bully. Came in from recess after he'd pushed, pinched, pulled, laughed at and threatened multiple people. I stood up from my chair, pointed at him and said if you ever touch me again I'll. Then turned around to see the teacher watching. I got a spanking. This happened in 10th grade, during lunch break. I had borrowed my friend's notebook the previous day and was trying to give it back to him. Now, because the break just started, the whole class was on the foot and moving around, so I decided to frisbee that notebook to him. He was sitting a row aside and on second last bench. No one between us. A teacher who didn't teach us happened to pass by the door exactly at that time and noticed this. She came inside our class and started slapping me left and right until I burst out crying. Her point being, I disrespected the notebook cause it had Goddess of Education, Saraswati, Hindu goddess, residing in it. I cried really hard because those were really hard slaps and also because it happened in front of the class. My dad was furious when he heard about it. He took me to school the next day, which was a Saturday, an off day for us but working for teachers, and he told me wait outside staff room. He went inside and screamed at her furiously. Leaving the classroom to pee, because the teacher said no. Apparently he knew my body better than I did. I used to draw 80s metal band names on my binder in middle school: Metallica, Def Leppard, Guns N' Roses, and I got reported by another student that I worship Satan because of this. Got called into the VP's office, binder confiscated, was told never to draw band names like that again. There was a period of time at my high school where we couldn't wear band shirts because of supposed gang activity. There'd be kids walking around in full blue-red throwing up gang signs and threatening people, but sure, me and the rest of the Arctic Monkeys are about to throw down and cause a ruckus. You know how if you hang around someone for a while you start speaking like them? Well, in primary school everyone said youse instead of something like you guys. My mum hated it and would correct me. So one day in class some girls asked me and my friend can youse pass me the scissors, and I, an intellectual, said use are sheep. She cried, told the teacher, and I got detention. Going to the bathroom during lunch. Last year in the cafeteria I was lined up to buy pizza and my vice principal was selling it. I gave my money, took my pizza and left. Later on in the day I get called into the office and he said he didn't feel respected by me because I never said please or thank you and got a 3-day suspension. Not me but a teacher, male, at our school got in trouble for holding the door open for another teacher, female. My English professor freshman year failed me for literally no reason. Every assignment I turned in was failed. I even made revisions using her suggestions and then she would say the revisions made it worse. Well, after losing financial aid for failing a class I emailed my professor and asked why I failed and stated why I shouldn't have failed and how I felt she didn't grade me fairly. She sent me a 4-page email saying I was harassing her and she reported me to the dean for harassment. But nothing ever came of it, but I never got financial aid again and had to pay for the rest of school out of pocket. I retook the class with a different professor and turned in the same exact assignments that I did the first time I took it. Passed the class with 100%. Reading Lord of the Flies. Teacher felt it wasn't appropriate. They kind of learned that my mother was not someone to be messed with after that. Love when teachers try to impose their own morality on students. During PE class in year 5, I said testicles in a childish conversation with 2 friends. A fellow classmate nearby overheard me saying that and decided to dob me in. Later on, my grumpy bat of a teacher ridiculed me in front of the class. Unsurprising, seeing as we both weren't really fond of each other. In my forensics class we were looking at hairs under microscopes and discussing their different traits. I raised my hand and asked where the change occurs between stomach hairs and pubes. My teacher flipped out and kicked me out of the class. My response was, "What's the answer to the question?" I had this demon teacher in 6th grade who was extremely condescending and unreasonable, who was very strict about writing in pencil only. Since we were allowed to use pens in pretty much every other class, there was one day I accidentally used a pen in her class. When she asked me if I was using a pen, I looked down at my writing and for some reason thought I had been writing in pencil, so I said no before realizing my mistake, and I guess that just really set her off and she made me stand up in front of the class while she yelled at me for lying to an adult. I was super close to crying and absolutely furious at her, but there was nothing I could do since she was an adult and I wasn't, so therefore she must have been right. To top it off, I was the quiet girl who never said a thing. In fact, I made sure to never say a thing since this teacher would usually find a way to use it as an opportunity to embarrass or belittle me. Honestly, there's been dumber things that I've gotten into trouble before because of her, but this one's the one that affected me the most. I really hope she's not out there terrorizing innocent 12-year-olds anymore. People like this is why Dolores Umbridge is the most hated villain of them all. We haven't faced a Voldemort, but everyone sure as crap has faced the petty tyrant who bullies kids relentlessly as a way to enjoy themselves. A kid threw a pencil at someone else, missed, and impaled my hand when I went to block my face. Teacher saw the pencil sticking out of my hand and gave me detention for fighting. I still have a small graphite chunk in my finger that you can see with a flashlight. Different teacher told us to get parent permission forms signed to watch a movie. She lost mine, blamed me, and made me have detention for the day while the class watched the movie. She found it at the end of the year behind a filing cabinet I couldn't possibly reach. Blamed me for putting it there. I have tons of stories like these. Bad teachers, different schools. Most should have been fired but they had tenure. We were on summer school camp and I was asleep in a girl's cabin. The other girls had let a boy in and got busted by the teachers guarding outside. I had to come back to school in the summer for a week to water the principal's plants and do other chores. My bus driver only drove us half the way to school, despite me paying a full fare. Whilst he was upstairs evicting everyone from the bus, I took my money back from his cash register. Not only did I get in trouble with the school, I received a police caution. I call it dumb because it was pretty freaking stupid of me. Not having the same political opinions as one of my teachers. Got a phone call home to my parents, but lucky me since my parents understood how silly the complaints were. I called a kid who was bullying me in 6th grade a frickface and got in school suspension. The ice lady was nice about it though. She basically told me, hey, the frickface had it coming lol. She did not actually say frickface. Washing dishes. I had a food and nutrition class where on cooking days each person had a job. On the day in question my job was washing dishes. Our classroom had 3 kitchens but only 2 sinks, and the kitchen I was working in had a sink but shared with the kitchen without. The people working in the kitchen without a sink just started dumping their dishes in my sink. No big deal, I just washed them. Only to be chewed out by the teacher and sent to the office, because how else would the people working in the kitchen without the sink learn how to wash dishes if I did this for them? Our school had this stupid rule where you weren't allowed to go to the bathroom during the last 5 minutes of class. Lo and behold, we're 5 minutes away from the bell when I suddenly break out in cold sweats, and I get that dreadful rumble in my guts. It's explosive diarrhea time. I asked to go to the toilet. Denied. I just yelled emergency and ran out of class. I got to the loo. Did the patented move of rolling my pants down transition into sitting down before losing 5 pounds in 15 seconds using this one simple trick. Doctors hate this guy. After cleaning up, I went back to collect my stuff from the classroom and to apologize to my teacher, but she had already written me up for it. Now, what makes this even stupider is that in my country, we start school at 7. We do 4 years of elementary school, 3 years of primary school, and 5 years of high school. This happened in my senior year. I was 19 years old. I was, by legal definition, a grown man. I wasn't going to crap my pants because of a stupid 5-minute rule. Should have crap your pants. I get it. You're not going to crap your pants in class, but you should have crap your pants. A friend of mine once got a note for his parents to sign that said, "Mike is stretching his nostrils with the tip of a scissor during class." He had put a tip of the scissor in each nostril and carefully opened the scissor so that his nostrils stretched. The teacher understood the ridiculousness of the note, but made it anyway because having the parents read about such ridiculous behavior from their son was the best way to make him see that he was an idiot. What highly illegal thing took place at your high school? Some girl brought cupcakes made with CM, called them cumcakes, proceeded to ask everyone in class if they wanted one. High school coach didn't keep tabs on our team during a week-long beach trip to play games in Florida. Parents supplied kids with alcohol. One of my teammates snaps his neck diving into the ocean. Coach fired. Kid paralyzed. Literal chaos within our baseball program ensued. It was awful. I transferred. Not sure if illegal, but a girl smeared her own crap all over the bathroom walls and mirrors. Could this count as vandalism? Spanish teacher got arrested for illegally bringing over a 14-year-old Argentinian girl and keeping her as a hetzel. But since she was here illegally and wouldn't testify against him, she was deported and he came back to school later in the year. Come to find out a couple of years later he had polisted like half of the girls' volleyball team he was the coach of. My senior year, one of my friends was murdered by her boyfriend and he drove around with her body in the trunk for a couple of hours. Also, a couple of kids got caught giving each other piercings in the stairwells. There were 4 freshmen in the bathroom stall just vaping and a teacher came in, so they freaked out and didn't want to get in trouble, so they thought calling the cops on the teacher for harassment would get them out of trouble. They got expelled an hour after the cops arrived. We had a science teacher say, "If you don't put goggles on, I'm going to have to spray you in the eyes with Lysol," which was probably not illegal until the student tried to call her bluff. She wasn't bluffing. This was middle school, but our computer teacher was fired after they caught him watching pee in the computer lab during lunch. Rumor has it, he was watching on the big projector screen they use for teaching. My gym teacher, originally a health ed teacher, got caught twice doing that and jerking it. All they did was turn him into the gym teacher, then made him back into the health teacher. The cool gang of kids, not me, I've never been anywhere near cool, got into a dare contest which ended up with one of them having to get a pair of knickers from a particular girl. She didn't want to play the game, so he ended up cornering her in a boys' toilet and cutting them off her with a knife. We never saw him at the school again. All games were banned. A teacher was caught getting physically intimate with an autistic student. I believe the student claimed to have loved her. Her dad was also a teacher at the same school and he left after the incident came out. This happened at my school too. Little bit of backstory first. Our school had a big renovation ongoing, and because of that, almost half of the school was closed down. The closed part included the biggest bathrooms, and because of that, the school administration ordered 2 toilet barracks to be placed on the schoolyard. So, some 7 ninth graders decided to buy some toilet pipe opener liquid, I don't know what is the correct term, and aluminium foil. They put the aluminium foil inside some plastic bottles and poured a little pipe opener in them with the foil. As someone has probably done this before, knows what is going to happen next. They stuck 6 bottles total inside the toilet bowls in every stall of one barrack and blew them up due to the chemical reaction between the foil and the opener. All the pipings of the single barrack were destroyed due to water pressure inside the pipes. Turns out that the 2 barracks had connected pipings and the water that was in the bowls in the other barrack shot up to the ceiling due to pressure. The students never got caught, and if I remember correctly, the incident ended up costing a hefty amount for the school administration. The barracks were taken away and were replaced with new ones. After the incident, every recess there was a teacher in front on the barracks monitoring everyone going in and out. Nothing happened to the new toilets. Pre-internet days kinda. CDs were a thing. I had a massive CD collection in a gigantic book in my locker. I typed up lists of all the artists and albums I owned. So I had these flyers everywhere, and for $3 a CD would burn you a copy. This was right when CD burners came out, and my stepdad was super into the latest and greatest tech, so we had the cool gadgets when they came out. I eventually was caught, but for a time I made killer money. A special ed kid got jumped by a dude on his way to school and was beating bloody. The whole thing was recorded by the guy's girlfriend and her friend. The whole time they were cheering him on, yelling things like world star and so on. She later posted it on Instagram, which pissed off everyone, and just about everyone wanted to beat the dude up in the vid. He was given temporary suspension. Freaking BS. While the police took care of him. From what I know, he was given an assault charge. Also, side note, there was a girl at my school who was in minor league boxing who was ready to beat him up. She even tried looking for him by his house. Had this happen at my school too, the guy just didn't wind up so lucky and had the balls to come to school. His face was pretty broken afterwards. Our football coach took off with one of the girls in the high school and moved to Mexico and married her. He had a wife and kids. They then hired a brand new football coach who was 23 years old. Before the end of his first year, he was hooking up with an 18-year-old senior girl. They also took off and went somewhere. We went without a coach for a couple years. My teacher was molesting my 14-year-old classmate for a while. He went to jail and is still there 20 years later because another past victim came forward. So that's pretty illegal. One of the old teacher's aides got arrested for child pee and filming the elementary kids' bathroom. Elementary kids. Some people are so messed up, man. Drama teacher slept with the hottest chicks in class and nothing ever happened to him. Chili pee filming. 2 underage seniors from my graduating class filmed a full-on horno with some 20-year-old dude. Circulated to like 30 kids in the class and was a huge scandal for the school for a while. One of them was expelled while the other was just given a suspension cause she otherwise had a clean record and was on one of the sports teams. Not sure if they ever found the dude. Not my school, but friends. 2 students threw a chair from a balcony. They've hit an 8-month pregnant teacher. She passed out. The principal refused to let an ambulance evacuate her from school grounds because it'd tatter their school's reputation. So she has had the custodian drag the unconscious bleeding pregnant teacher out of the school. And only then she called the ambulance. The teacher has had a stillbirth consequently to that incident. 2 kids were making love in the toilets a few years ago and other 2 kids burned a desk inside the class. Grew up in a small town. When a lamb got sick and was dying, our ag teacher just had us go out behind the classroom building and shoot it. We ended up pulling a massive tapeworm out of it. Definitely not legal to have guns on campus, let alone use them. We slaughtered and butchered a hog with a massive hernia. Mind you, big skin pouch full of innards hanging down on school grounds for an ag class once. It was an anatomy lesson and a meats lesson in one. I went to an incredibly crappy school in London that was in special measures by the time I left at 18 after a year with about 50% attendance and 3 U grades at A level. It is apparently doing fairly well now since it has been amalgamated into the fold of a local superhead who runs several schools across the surrounding boroughs. But I will paste what I shared last time since people seemed to like it then. We had Menet, dog hammer fight in my first week. Rush day. 1 day per year the kids in your 7 would just get random beats. A couple of stabbings year. Kid locked the woodwork teacher in the toilets. Woodwork teacher kicked the door off its hinges and set about the kid the very same way. Someone stole all the computers from the computer room. Kid was stripped and all his clothes and belongings were doused in lighter fluid and burned. Head teacher left for lunch one day and never came back. Our only person making the timetables was the admin business teacher. Died of a heart attack during a class. Starting the following year, no classes were organized for 2 months graduation year A2. To boot, still received weekly notices about attendance during that period. History teacher got pregnant by another teacher. Conception apparently on site. They weren't in a relationship. Someone started a rumor that she was violated and he was also a pedophile. He had to leave the school. Superhead brought in to get us shipshape, known for taking no crap and turning schools around. Made her quit her entire decades-long career. Couldn't hire new teachers. Woodworking debt was abandoned after previous incident. Kid trapped another kid in there with a mind to reenact some hostile crap and tried to slice his femoral artery with a sharpened file. This is some Bullworth Academy crap right here. A teacher and an administrator embezzled millions. I didn't even know all this happened until years after graduation. Some of my friends had the teacher in question. Female freshmen would hang out in a teacher's classroom almost every day after school. People thought he was just a club sponsor and that she was very involved. A few weeks into the semester they were caught by police in an Airbnb and he was arrested. A teacher bonded like 12 students. The issue is everybody loved that guy. He won Best Teacher award like 2 days before his arrest. P.S. No, this isn't Persona 5, this actually did happen. I'm not making a clever joke about Kamoshida, although I probably would have. This was a real guy. One Mr. Chu. Had a pretty controversial case involving a handicapped student who had cerebral palsy and muscular dystrophy. His parents filed a lawsuit accusing 2 of his handlers of abusing him by dumping him out of his chair and forcing him to wear a neck brace so he'd look them in the eye. Worst part was I don't think the handlers suffered any consequences. I looked up articles on it and all of them highlight the abuse and lawsuit, but none follow through with the results, which is frustrating. Had a guy selling H. After that there was a weekly police presence. Also, a kid bound a girl to a chair, gagged her and stuffed her in a cupboard in the woodworking shop. He claims it was to help her complete the sponsored silence she had been doing that day. Kids were selling candy and snacks to other students, obliterating the monopoly that the vending machines once held. Administration cut that crap out real quick. My school tried stamping that out. When they realized that was infeasible, they instead started a market in the small gym during lunch. Charged a $5 a day for a table. One of my friends made a couple of grand from running a table for a year. Playing unblocked games. My golf coach got arrested in Kansas for driving with a spare tire full of C. Half my school burned down because some idiot thought it would be a good idea to light a wrestling mat on fire. Pro tip: wrestling mats are very flammable. Weren't able to have sports all year. Talent shows and concerts in the auditorium. Benefit was we got 2 weeks off from school while they vented cleaned up the mess. All I can remember was the kid was a minor, so the parents pretty much owed millions to the school. Update: just googled the kid's name and found out he died a year later in a car accident near the school he transferred to, because he was expelled obviously. Over spring break one year, the entire hockey team and the cheerleaders all went to rehab. The goalie was dealing coke to all of them. Basketball coach was fricking players' parents. When faculty and authorities started looking into the situation, they found that he was also posting in the classified ads as a prostitute. The cheerleaders got caught selling morphine. The football team got into a brawl with a rival school at a local pizza place over said morphine scandal. A huge fiasco over a kid putting baking soda and vinegar in a test tube and sealing it and taping it under a lunch table till it exploded. The principal was fricking students. A few years after I graduated, some parents found out and took him to court. He hanged himself before he could be convicted. My history teacher had physical intimacy with a 15-year-old girl, but she didn't admit it for at least a decade. He was a good teacher and I liked his class, but he's gonna rot in jail for the rest of his life. The middle school gym teacher who inappropriately touched lots of preteen girls, who promptly told on him, got the teensiest slap on the wrist, and that was that. Probably the pedo cult masked as a NAAA group that met in the basement somewhat regularly. This year the fire alarm's gone off twice BC of kids smoking weed in the bathroom. Freshmen vape in plain view of teachers and no one cares. Someone got shot during an after-school choreo a couple months ago. Knew a guy that sold C in class and tried to offer a girl pot to sleep with him. There was also some public stickum in one of the halls that led to a girl starving herself until she miscarried. A good friend of my dorky group brought contraband Russian vodka to high school all the time. He ran a scam selling fake web hosting. and once got into real trouble for making one of these shock websites, a Lagotsi, with malicious code in it that forced you to physically restart the computer if you wanted out of it. Yes. He got into trouble because he made another kid's name appear on it, implying he was the guy being featured in the shocking nudies. Other than that, my high school only had the usual things: Greek dealers, thieves, and a certain teacher that tried to coerce girls into giving him floozy in exchange of grades, and failing miserably. A terrorist bomb exploded just in front of our school when I was in middle school. We were studying when it happened. There was a big smoke. Glasses were shattered. Everybody rushed outside as soon as they heard the explosion. I just stood dumbstruck in my seat for a full 10 seconds before being able to move. Years later, this is still the most overwhelming experience in my life. Not highly illegal, but not legal either. I figured out how to make fake IDs in my home darkroom and showed a friend how to do it. This was in the early 70s, before Photoshop, when analog darkrooms and chemical-based photography were the only option. He went into production in the school darkroom. His quality sucked. He got caught. My quality was excellent, but I only made one for me. In the late 70s, my mom pretended to be her older friend who had lost her ID so she could get a legit fake. Said friend then went in days weeks later because she lost her ID so that the picture on the record would actually be right. I'm impressed you made your own. The principal hired a bunch of students to sell steroids at the local gym. Same principal gave the same students a list of kids who were questioning their vital with the counselor. Before XRs were a thing, and they all had their lockers bashed in with a baseball bat. One of the kids had his parents notified and was beat within an inch of his life. Our teacher used to hotbox her classroom and then use the kiln fan to pull all the smoke out. Typical art teacher there, no surprise. Someone took a crap on the floor during a strike. Kid got together with all his friends and got nudes of girls from school, all underage, and burned a DVD with all the pics and started selling it. Well, the principal found out, and instead of turning it over to the police, he got a copy and was caught jerking off to it in his office. School swept it under the rug and he used some kind of clause in his contract basically saying they couldn't legally say anything about it. But he got quietly retired and they got a new principal. This happened after I had got out of school and we used to always joke that he was a pedophile. Crazy crap. A bunch of the guys had a fight club. It had been going on for years, no face hits, and there was a 18 and 18 group, so if they got caught nobody got assault on a minor charges. It was actually really well planned and had been going on for years. Until one dumbass junior broke the first rule of Fight Club and posted a video. A bunch of kids got suspended. I think a couple of the seniors got probation or deferment. Man, that's just frickin' horrible. Murder. A kid in the grade ahead of me murdered his sister behind the high school. An acquaintance of mine helped him bury the body. Hey Reddit, did you ever get suspended or expelled from school? If so, what for? In math I sat next to a guy called Mark. We got on pretty well, in a completely ungay manner. Once I dropped my pen under the desk, so I went down to get it, and the teacher asked me what I was doing under the desk. I don't know why, but I replied without thinking, pleasuring Mark in a sarcastic tone. The best part was that our school had a policy of filling out a form when a student misbehaved, and the first question on it was what was the student doing. Teacher wrote Jakarta was pleasuring Mark under the desk in math class. That was fun to explain to the parents. 2-day suspension. I had 3 days of in-school suspension for playing a game of hot sauce roulette. The rules were that a package of hot sauce would go around the table and the person that the hot sauce would be passed to would have to be twisted once before being passed to the next person until the package burst. When it got to me, it was about 12 twists in. I held it out a little bit, twisted it, and it burst, only not in my direction. The sauce actually shot across the table and got in somebody's eye. We tried to keep it quiet, but the hot sauce hurt Alec. The kid tried to keep quiet, but he still let out small whines before a teacher came over and asked what was going on. He eventually burst into total tears and another kid told the teacher what happened. I was then sent to the office and told my punishment. That kid's a bro for trying to keep it quiet. I was expelled for hacking. I made all the printers in the school print a poem I wrote about the poor network security, all at the same time. I also used the net send command to pop up a message on all the computers in the school district about it. When they checked my user profile, they saw that I used remote desktop to connect to my home computer all class so that I wasn't restricted by their content filter. I'm a pretty well off sysadmin now. Once in 4th grade, a guy I didn't like accused me of spitting in the bottle of a girl I didn't particularly like. Since my hatred of the girl was public, they believed the guy, got suspended for 3 weeks. If you're reading this, frick you Jiho. Immunizations were out of date, got suspended for 4 days, until the doc provided immunization paperwork proving I had got them. Yay, I'm pretty badass. Okay, this one makes the most sense. It should be standard policy everywhere, to be honest, unless the student has a really good reason why they can't be vaccinated. Egg immunocompromised. Expelled from school for drawing a 30-foot dong using weed killer on the cricket field. No regrets. Someone drew a 200-foot long dong in the snow last year. I got 2 days of out of school suspension for skipping accounting class one time. I wasn't suspended, but I did get in trouble in the 2nd grade because I called a kid a tattletale and he told on me. Yes, I was technically expelled for 3/4 of my sophomore year in high school because I was an idiot and got caught selling other kids my Ritalin pills. Part of the fallout of that was mandatory community volunteer service, which I served by helping my mother as a teacher's aide at the local special needs school. The school even sent me a tutor so I could complete my classes. Returned back to school the first day of junior year and heard all the crazy rumors of how I was some big time Greek dealer and was sent to juvie. I wish I was that badass. I brought in bullets that I bought in an army museum. Got them out in a lesson, had them taken off me. 2 lessons later, I was taken out of class by the lady that deals with the naughty kids. Pastoral teacher was her job title I think, and she somehow knew what I'd done over the weekend. So you went to the army museum on Saturday then, and took me straight to the headmaster's office. In there was a table set up dramatically in the room with the bullets on, him with a stern face and a police officer with a slightly sterner one. Got a bollocking. My headmaster called my mum on speakerphone. She laughed at the stupidity of calling the police and kinda ruined the effect he was going for, and the police officer actually turned out to be quite nice. Showed me how he knew they had been fired and that I just should keep them to myself if I ever bought them again. He took them away from me and took names and crap. I was excluded for 2 days and spent a week in the inclusion unit, which was nice, cause it was built for kids with special needs more than naughty kids and had 2 dogs, fish, and Xbox and a seemingly unlimited supply of cookies. Almost made me want to get in trouble again. I was excluded for 2 days and spent a week in the inclusion unit, which was nice, cause it was built for kids with special needs more than naughty kids and had 2 dogs, fish, and Xbox and a seemingly unlimited supply of cookies. Almost made me want to get in trouble again. That sounds dope. In 1999 I was expelled from public school, along with a boatload of other students, for being a guy with long hair, with a superintendent, who had been fired from his previous 2 jobs and would go on to give himself raises until he was paid more than the governor. Implemented a strictly racist dress code policy stating that guys couldn't have piercings or long hair, that visible tattoos and non-natural hair colors were banned, that certain widths of pants legs were banned, etc. It was all clearly targeting a specific group of people, the skater grungy freaky folks. And like clockwork, these kids started dropping out of high school and getting expelled, left and right. When we had a protest against it, they sent a school board representative to talk to us. He took the stand and said that we can't be trusted to choose our own dress when we can't be trusted to sit down in the back of a truck, a reference to a high school student who died the previous day falling from the bed of a moving truck. Fricked up, and you probably never heard anything about it. Some girls, I am also a girl, ganged up on me when I was in grade 5. I was a year younger than everyone else due to the teachers deciding to skip me ahead a grade, so I was also a lot smaller than them. Anyway, we went around the back of the school when no one else was and they started punching me and I tried to hit back, but being 9 years old, I didn't know how to. The teachers found out about it and we were all suspended for a single day I think. Mom made me do yard work. That's upsetting. Hope you burned their houses down or so. Got in school suspension in 8th grade. Kid who I absolutely hated came up from behind me and dead-legged me. Basically he kneed me in the back of the leg so hard I couldn't walk. I turned around and punched him right across the face. Administration didn't buy my excuse. I was trying my defend myself. Worth every bit of it. Frick that kid. I never even got detention, but my dad was expelled from high school. The story is that he brought his dirt bike in, with his teacher's permission, to work on in some mechanical metalworking class. One of his friends dared him to ride it down the hall. Apparently he accepted the challenge and threw in a wheelie for good measure. As he passed the principal's office, my dad generally likes to exaggerate, but this story has been corroborated with reliable sources. I got detention so much that I knew the teacher would make kids write 3 pages double-sided of the same phrase as punishment. I started writing them in advance. Every day in 3rd period biology I would walk to the teacher's lounge, take whatever frozen treats, food, or sodas were available, and just walk out. This went on for months until my vice principal asked me what I was doing. 5-day suspension. Nobody suspected me of wrongdoing because I walked in there with so much confidence everyone assumed I was allowed in. I would often have conversations with teachers in the lounge while stealing, right in front of them, and they never asked. I repeatedly harassed my high school Spanish teacher for spending more time talking about cheerleading and prom committee instead of teaching Spanish. She showed us the movie Spanglish, so I got suspended. A lot. When I was in high school, I was really into collecting hot sauces. I had picked up a bottle of Satan's blood on a vacation and thought it'd be fun to take it to school and goof off with friends. The bottle ended up leaving my control and circulated the cafeteria. People were eating spoonfuls of it on a dare without knowing its power. A drop will spice a bowl of soup. By the afternoon, several kids had been sent home by the school nurse after consuming the sauce. The concerned parents called and wanted some action taken, so I was given ice. My parents thought the whole thing was so absurd and hilarious, and ended up putting the suspension slip in a scrapbook with my baby pics and other sentimental items. Suspended a few times. Once for accumulating too many strikes, breaking small rules, egg chewing gum, or placing my school bag where it doesn't belong. Once for fighting, once for truancy, and once for, in the principal's words, attempting to instigate a mob culture. I was suspended for getting swine flu. Senior year, high school, Louisiana. Height of the swine flu business. I felt crappy on Thursday afternoon. By Friday I was dead. Fever 100 plus, shaking, hallucinating, all 9 yards. No one connected the dots. Didn't even know I had it until the next week, where my doctor sent me to the hospital. I was out of school for 2 weeks, 11 school days. When I finally got back I had to submit a note to the office. Well, being that I almost died like 3 times in the past 2 weeks, we completely forgot to get it. Well, we called the doctor's office to get a note. Turns out he was on vacation. Wouldn't be back till next week. Called the school. They said no problem. Turn my note in the following week and immediately get told to wait in the office. The principal wants to meet with you. I get in his office and he asks for my note. Not even a note, it was an essay. 2 pages detailing admitting times, fever temperatures, and contact information to collaborate. I hand it to him. He looks up and down the page and tears it up into a million pieces like an angry Neanderthal and throws it in the trash. He says, you know, you have 2 days to turn in the note when you get back from being sick. I explained the situation, but he wasn't having it. My parents were called to pick me up and I was suspended not 30 minutes into the school day. How long? 5 days. Oh, and I wouldn't be able to graduate. No big deal. Long story short, we have to go to the school board, set up a court time to present our evidence for why I shouldn't be suspended, expelled, basically, from school. We show all my doctor notes, bills, etc. and get everything wiped from my school record and am allowed to go back to school. I had a target on my back the rest of the school year with that principal. One time I got a D on some test, called me to his office and had to sit there for 10 minutes listening to him telling me I'll never amount to anything. I should just drop out like all the other degenerates. This happened 10-15 times after this incident. I graduated with everyone else and went to college. Just so you know, I had never attended this school before in my life. I had just moved to Louisiana. My family moved around a lot. I wasn't a troublemaker and my grades rarely dropped below a B average. To this day the same principal still has his job. You should do everyone a solid and burn his house down, with him in it. I got an internal school suspension in high school for 2 days for whacking a kid with a yardstick on the back. I only wish it had been out of anger instead of a joke, would have at least made the suspension worth it. I forgot my binder at home 3 days in a row in 5th grade and my teacher sent me next door to 1st grade for a day. It wasn't that bad. Coloring is fun and I smashed that addition test. Threw a rock and hit a kid. Got sent to Opportunity School in Central Florida, 8th grade. Did a week and was sent back to regular old school. I really did not think I had a chance of hitting the kid due to his distance. Lucky shot, or unlucky. I got suspended from school in 5th grade because I was caught reading Bram Stoker's Dracula at my desk. I went to a private Christian school. Thanks, parents. That's pretty funny when you consider that Dracula gets knifed in the end. It's not like the book extols the virtues of evil and vampirism. I got suspended for 3 days once. I was playing basketball and a guy threw the ball at my head. He missed though. I pushed him and told him to pee off. In response he slapped me in the face. The other kids gathered around but I decided I wasn't gonna fight the guy and left for class. Some kids couldn't keep quiet about the altercation and were yelling across the classroom, "Did you hear Ima's head got in a fight with Derp?" A homeroom teacher overheard and sent us to the principal. I was told to miss 3 days and to get my homework. I said frick that and walked straight home. TLDR. Suspended 3 days for getting slapped. I hope you actually said frick that to the principal. I was in the back of the bus and tried to throw a Cadbury egg at someone in the front. It bounced off the top corner of the seat and hit the bus driver. She pulled over the bus and refused to continue driving until someone confessed. Got 2 weeks in school suspension for it. Why not just eat it? They're so good. I made a fake Facebook account for my headmaster when I was in year 7, 6th grade for the non-British. I added other teachers and students, and it wasn't long before the police turned up at the school. Luckily, he could see that I genuinely didn't realize what I was doing was wrong, and dismissed the police. I had to take the profile down and I was suspended for 3 days. My 7th grade science teacher was in butthole. Someone made a Facebook page Mr. X's shiny bald head and had a picture of Mr. Clean. Everyone posted on the page's wall bitching about what he had done in class that day. It's gone now. I don't remember anything big happening to cause it though. In grade 8 I was a bit of a craphead and I threw a turkey. Might have been ham. My memory is a little fuzzy. Sandwich at a vegetarian girl in our class. I was suspended for a couple days after that. Fast forward 12 years and me and the vegetarian girl have been dating for almost 5 years. Habitual neglect of duty, which means suspended from school for not doing school. When I was younger I was not the best student. Didn't do my homework. Daydreamed all day in class. Typical 7th grader stuff. My teacher was at her wit's end with me, so they took away the only thing I actually wanted to do, electives. So while the rest of the school was out snowboarding, I was stuck in the principal's office doing schoolwork. I drew an army of cats on my detention paper. When I turned it in, I was suspended. A kid I knew from primary school was getting bullied by 2 guys, so I beat both of them up. Explained to the teachers that the guys were bullying somebody but nothing was done about it, whereas I was suspended for the week. Yes kids, do stand up for those who are being bullied. You'll get in trouble via zero tolerance policy. I received 1 day of in-school suspension in 6th grade. I was leaning back in my chair and fell, cracked my head off the floor and proceeded to cry. My teacher sent me to the principal's office for causing a distraction in class. In grade 3 I got suspended for bringing a plastic orange peeler to school in my lunch to peel my orange. I also got suspended a lot for being a little crap in elementary school, from beating up other kids to flooding the bathrooms. And my personal favorite, I dug up one of the young, newly planted trees from the schoolyard and replanted in the pitcher's mound and the baseball diamond. For cutting school, for not being at school for 2 days, I was rewarded 3 more. High school, walking down the hall with a friend. Friend asked for my lighter for a second, so I gave it to him. He burned off a piece of his sweatshirt or some crap. I wasn't paying attention. Gives me my lighter back and this girl comes up and says give me your lighter now. She looked like a sophomore and I was a junior, so I said no and kept walking. Later that day I get called down. There's the sophomore girl I said no to earlier. Turns out however, she was a new teacher and just looked young. She was so mad that I embarrassed her. She told the principal I was trying to light kids on fire. Not a great day. I was using the urinal and took my pants all the way off and had my hands above my head, leaning against the wall. Everyone left the bathroom dying laughing, so the principal, who happened to be walking by at the time, decided to come in and find out what was so funny. Jaywalking, helicopter parents crap themselves, and I had to make a decision between military school and private homeschool. I go to group meetings because they're crazy, and I'm in my 30s. I did not get suspended, but 2 buddies of mine got suspended for shooting a paper wasp at me. What made it bad was that they had looped several rubber bands together to make a 4 or 5 foot catapult, built the wasp out of an entire poster board, and stood up in the back of class to rain heck on my unsuspecting butt. The teacher looked up from his book, and that was that. I stole a pizza and got caught, but I was a Robin Hood and shared it with everyone on the bus. My brother got suspended for 3 days for playing with a laser pointer. The teacher told the principal he tried to shine it in her eye. He admitted that playing with the laser was dumb, but he absolutely did not try to shine it in anyone's eye. I was suspended freshman year for saying frick you be to a teacher I ended up having and getting along with senior year. Got suspended from elementary school for use of a weapon. It was a snowball. My older brother used to make what he called atomic snowballs. He'd take a clump of snow in his bare hands and melt it into a ball of ice, cover it up with snow, and throw it at me. Those things hurt like a mother. I got expelled for attempting to steal a toilet in junior high. Load of crap that was. What was the please stop school presentation that you witnessed? In college during abnormal psychology, a student did an entire presentation on Obama's bipolar disorder. She kept citing an article from The Onion. I roll R at The Onion. Was in a video film making class in high school. One group of guys did a parody of those Gatorade commercials where the athlete's sweat is colored like Gatorade, but it was a sweaty guy jerking off. Apparently there was a Gatorade cum shot, but the teacher just turned that crap off immediately before it got that far. I never thought I would read the words Gatorade cum shot together with my own 2 eyes in my entire life, yet here I am. The anti-vaxxer chick that did a presentation on why vaccines cause autism, followed up by someone else's presentation on how vaccines do not cause autism. It was a weird day. I bet the guy who went after her felt pretty confident when he walked up. Presentation on World War II. Student had just discovered all the neat transitions you can use between slides and decided to use a different one each slide. They used the flashing heart transition between a photo slide of a mass grave and a photo slide of Hitler. For 8th grade talent show, 2 girls sang the Mr. Bledel song. Mr. Bledel was a good-looking, recently college graduated teacher that basically was about how cute they thought he was. Even then, it was incredibly uncomfortable, and I remember looking at the teacher's face and he didn't seem very amused. God, I would hate to be that teacher. Opioid awareness, literally a few months ago, started with them blasting the entirety of the Disturbed cover of The Sound of Silence, while a slideshow of images containing sad stock photos with the watermark all over, random shots of really dark nighttime photos, and tons of poorly photoshopped drug images trudged on ever so slowly. Then, 2 women told us the harrowing stories of how their sons died of opioid overdoses. Incredibly emotional. Several people cried. Real downer, basically. Then, a D agent comes up and tries to act all bad cop. He calls us, an assembly of high school students, grades 9-12, freaking morons. The principal was not pleased. He is then followed by a nurse who was there to tell us the physical effects of opioid addiction and withdrawals and all that. And she did talk about that, but the whole time she was running around practically screaming jokes and doing crappy over the top gags, trying to be the comic relief in an opioid assembly where 2 women shared the stories of how their children died. What the frick was she doing being that loud and crazy? Everyone came out of the whole thing with a general attitude of yeah frick opioids, but also frick that whole presentation. Once in college I was in my Spanish class and our desks were in a U shape. I was on the very end of the U. So some guy is giving a presentation. He is standing behind a podium. Gets a boner. I'm on the side and no one is opposite so I can see it. Dude just kept going on and on and on. I think he was trying to outlast the boner. He ended up getting it down before he had to sit down. Was like a 10 minutes presentation that only needed to be like 3 minutes yo. The fear boner. In my high school current events class 2 freshman girls got a little lost in their research about ISIS. They somehow connected this terrorist group to the magic bullet theory used in the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Me and the few other seniors were holding back laughter the entire presentation. Had to look it up. Apparently there are some fringe groups actually promoting this as a thing. What the heck world, what the heck. Not a literal presentation really, but we had an assembly in high school where the students that helped plan homecoming would announce the nominations for homecoming court. It always had a cute little theme and like a short skit involved. Well, at one point the audio they were using as the cue for the skit failed. They just kind of paused for technical difficulties. But this one girl from the planning committee started singing a random Disney song a cappella while improvising a dance to go along with it. I guess as a distraction from them trying to fix the audio. She kept trying to get people to join in with her, but nobody did. And she eventually just kind of trailed off mid-song and started pouting that nobody would sing with her. Then once they got the audio fixed for the skit, she pouted and snapped the way through the rest of her lines, which made everything even more uncomfortable. The other famous one was when a girl in our class running for student government referenced a hashtag that she was trying to make popular during her campaign speech to the whole school. The hashtag was something catchy about her having a big butt. There was a genuine collective yikes from the crowd when she said it. I don't think she got elected. In high school, a student died in a car accident where she was driving. There was no record that stated she was distracted by her phone or anything, but the school decided to have an assembly shortly after talking about distracted driving and using her as an example, telling the whole school she'd be alive if she was doing what she was supposed to. That's fricked. Some guy in my class, about 12-13 years old, confused heroic and erotic. The teacher asked if he really read an erotic book and he said yes, as the student watched in disbelief. Took the teacher 30 seconds to catch up the misunderstanding. Mayo the teacher thinking this kid is reading Chuck Tingle books. Not a presentation, but during our school assemblies we often had student performers, which were usually musically inclined individuals or theater kids doing a scene monologue. One kid decided to do a stand-up comedy routine about a girl giving him a BJ. So awkward, and the principal had to interrupt him. Thank you, Kevin, that's enough. In 1984, when I was in 6th grade, each class did the winter concert. The 8th grade football team sang I'm Dreaming of a Black Christmas in blackface, Green Bay, Wisconsin, Bayview Middle School. 1985, Green Bay Middle School. Sounds about right. The one where my school got ripped off by paying a guy who claimed to be on SpongeBob to come talk to us about drugs. He did look kind of like Tom Kenny, I guess. I was also thinking backward about the question. I thought OP meant when did the school have to tell everyone to quit doing something. For me it was banning Pokemon cards in 1998 because toddlers were brawling over that first edition Charizard. In history class, we all had to do a presentation about some sort of injustice in the world. One kid chose a prison camp for his topic. All his PowerPoint slides were photos of men being stripped, chained, whipped, sodomized, and forced to give BJs. We were 13. I went to school for computer security. In an introduction to computer security course, we had to do a project on social engineering. A student decided that for his project he was going to find a way to gain access to a chosen website. He found a small local business website, identified that the domain was registered to an email address from a local ISP, called the ISP to reset the password. They asked him for his last 4 of his SSN. So he hung up. He found the phone number of the business, so called them and pretended to be from the ISP, offering 3 months free if the person did a 5-question survey. They accepted and answered some BS questions. Then he asked for the last 4 of the guy's SSN, which they gave no problem. He then called the ISP with the last 4, got them to reset the password of the email account. He then logged into the email and used it to get the domain registrar to send a password reset to the email, which he used to reset the password of the domain account, and deleted the email. He recorded all phone calls and screenshotted the whole process. As he presented all these, we kept expecting him to say but that would be illegal, so I didn't do X. But he went all the way. The professor finally stopped him after he said he logged into the domain registrar and told him to destroy everything and never speak of it again. I think the professor was a bit nicer than he could have been, potentially to the point of accomplice, telling him to destroy evidence. Whoa, nothing like committing digital crimes to pass a class. This was a Spanish class in college, and I think the assignment was something like talk about your best friend or some such. Just kind of a softball assignment so you could practice using the vocabulary, and one classmate's friend was evidently a friend with benefits. Not at school, but when I was in high school my church youth group went to this church camp. For those uninitiated, Thursday nights are normally the really emotional nights. Well, this camp was different. Thursday night the guy that started the camp comes on stage and begins giving a bunch of middle school and high school boys and girls the sex talk. All I remember from that night was the quote, "Just because there's a hole there doesn't mean you have to stick something in it. But then the boat will sink." An anti-bullying campaign. They spent most of the presentation explaining different types and ways to bully harass people. Bullying increased in school and everything got 10 times worse now that the students were more educated on the subject. Compared to some other stories in here, this is minor, but it was a group project for one of my literature classes. There were 5 people in this group. According to the rubric for this assignment, everyone was supposed to have equal speaking parts. One of the members in this group would just not stop talking. Half of their presentation was just her talking, and she went on about each of her slides for like 5 minutes. The rest of her group members had like 1 or 2 slides each, and she had, if I recall correctly, 5 or 6. She would also interject into the other group members' parts to add her opinions. The look on my professor's face screamed just shut up already every time she talked. Oh man, this could have been me in high school or college. I was such a know-it-all and talked way too much. I cringe so hard when I think about it. During nursing school, a guy decided to use My Little Pony figures as props to a seminar room of about 100 people. He told the class that he would refer to himself as his pony name for the duration. Don't remember what it was. Also, not that this is relevant, but he wore a black leather trench coat and it was pretty hot in the room, yet he never took it off. Cringe. My sophomore year we had to make a presentation about any person that made an impact on the world that was inspirational. Someone chose Hitler. A kid did something similar at my middle school. We had to make posters about someone who inspired us and he picked Hitler. His justification was all the stuff he invented later got removed from the school, and we had an assembly while he was gone where they explained he had autism. Environmental science. For our final project in the class we were allowed to talk about. Dude decides to do his project on global cooling. Buddy was up there for 7 minutes explaining to the class how the earth has been getting colder and colder, and how it's eventually going to cause problems to other species. Teacher was really passionate about this class and you could see her squirming in her seat the whole way through the presentation. Whole thing was a big WTF. His sources were online forums. Hey, props to them for getting the climate change part right. This was my presentation, and it was about the science behind how Mountain Dew can dissolve a mouse. This was in 4th grade. Needless to say, I got some parent complaints. Every year someone did the Coke and Bones experiment at my school. Every year it won an award. In Speech 101 in college we had to pick a children's book and voice act each character. That was it. That was the entire assignment. Well, one student decided to take it to the next level. He chose a Berenstain Bear book and decided to not only do voice acting for every single one of the characters, but also act it out. It was physically uncomfortable to watch this guy scramble around the room and pretend to be bears and other animals. It was not well done. It was awful. That sounds hilarious. In 4th year university we had a year-long seminar course of 15-ish students. Our big end-of-year project was to give a 3-hour lecture on one of the historical figures we'd studied. One guy got up there and was so nervous he blasted through his content in less than an hour, without hardly taking a breath. Nobody could understand him. The prof didn't step in to tell him to slow down, and he was sweating so profusely his shirt was soaked through. I felt really bad for him, but oh god. A teacher asked us to compare the cells in our body to anything we can think of. Obviously some students compared the parts of the human cell to schools, jails, libraries, normal things, right? Well, this one student that sits next to me had a different idea. These were group projects, keep in mind. This girl managed to strong-arm her group to compare the human cell to the infamous webcomic Homestuck. She did this successfully. Not only did I feel dirty, but her group felt worse for having their names on it. Oh god, this sounds like something I would do in 6th grade. I had a friend who deliberately wrote moral of the story instead of moral on a presentation, and I have never forgiven him since. My junior year in French class, this one girl did not know French at all, despite taking the class for 4 years. She was pretty open about it too, laughing and saying how she didn't need this class in the middle of the presentation. The teacher asked her to sit. This one girl did not know French at all, despite taking the class for 4 years. This is surprisingly common in foreign language classes. This was in fricking college. Our bio finals were to present on any topic that was related to biology. A group was presenting on types of protection for sex. Not once did they refer to any body parts or fluids by their scientific names. So, yes, they literally had dong, cm, and pee on slides and read off them. Everyone kept glancing over at our professor, who had this look like he was just constantly cleaning his glasses because he couldn't believe what he was witnessing. They got Kentucky fricked on grading. I googled Kentucky fricked, but it just delivered P results. It's me. I did this. I cringe about it to this day, nearly 20 years later. I was 16 and in high school. My high school was going to do a spring talent show. I wanted to be in the talent show and show off my talents. The problem was, my actual talents are not ones that I could show off at a talent show. So I decided to try singing. I have never sung in my life. I have never had voice lessons. I was in my prime weeb stage and chose an anime song to sing. I didn't know any actual Japanese. I had just memorized the lyrics from hearing the song so many times. Luckily I didn't make it past auditions, but several people saw an overweight girl in a Sailor Moon shirt try to sing Butterfly despite having never done any singing or voice training ever in her life. Nearly 20 years later, and remembering it keeps me awake at night. A girl in my school danced to Hatsune Miku for a presentation. I cringed, but I admired her balls to do something like that. I never did this, but my dream was to include a slide of a bear running toward us and then me yelling "oh no," a bear, and then quickly going to the next slide, saying "whoa, that was close," and then going on like nothing happened. I have a feeling I would have ended up in this thread. I feel like this has a 65/35 chance of being either cringy or pretty funny. I was a teacher's aide at my son's school, and I sat in on his class one day as a first grader did show and tell. She held up a book and said, "This is my diarrhea." Half the class looked confused, the rest looked intrigued. She continued to mix up diary with diarrhea for several more sentences as the teacher and I were silently crying with hysteria. If just one kid had laughed, we would have jumped in, but everyone listened with respect and applauded at the end, so we moved on. In my world cultures class in middle school we had to take a different country and compare it to America. A kid proceeded to pick the United States and even converted the currency, and on his slide said $1 equals $1. The teacher made him stop, but I kinda wish I saw the rest. The floor here is made out of floor. I was doing work experience with a bunch of special needs kids at a school. We were watching a play that I don't remember the name of, which was about someone who was in a gang or something and got HIV. Instead of having any action or dialogue, The story was told through characters standing out the front and telling the story to the audience. It was dull as heck. The special needs kids were getting so restless, and I couldn't blame them, because it was terrible. Us. We were to make a film retelling the story of Hamlet. It was supposed to be 5 minutes. Being the creative nutcases we were, we made a 22-minute film complete with a commercial break which made fun of prior books we had to read. Ophelia was a Jersey Shore W who refused to take her Prozac. Polonius was a perverted Greek philosopher, and Hamlet was a depressed emo. Sword fights were video game based, with Mortal Kombat themes. We presented it to the class and were cut off after 5 minutes. We received an A. This sounds like my group. We had to do a project on Romeo and Juliet, so we submitted a half-hour film that we created. It was titled CSI Verona, so you can probably imagine what occurred. Someone gave a speech about durian in a class once. She brought a small frozen sample that thawed as the class went on. The professor let students step out the room. Coincidentally, one of the culinary classes reported a gas leak and pulled the fire alarm. I didn't think durians gave off that particular mercaptan. That being said, warm durian does smell pretty wretched, and if you haven't smelled natural gas and a durian, I could see how they could be swapped. Natural gas, well, the mercaptan added to it, has a more acrid smell than durians. We had this senior talent show that a few male students could sign up for, no idea why it was only guys, or how the few people even got nominated for it, and they all had to do their own act. Some sang, some danced, some put on a funny skit. Possibilities were endless. Well, each year someone who never got told they weren't good at singing would end up on stage. One time this guy did the evolution of boy band songs and it was just below average singing for, no joke, 15 minutes straight. Bonus skit that I'm glad didn't stop because it was hilarious. One guy did a wrestling skit with different movie characters and my friend was the announcer. When Indiana Jones got into the ring, my friend announced it's the BDSM bad boy himself, and somehow that slipped by all the school staff members and made it into the DVDs the school sold. Another friend of mine sang Disney princess songs while wearing a Sonic hat and got second place, and at least 3 girls gave him their number. If you can sing Disney princess songs while wearing a Sonic hat while being confident, you better believe the girls are gonna swoon. When I was a 9th grade student, we had to present the poems we made in English class. Most people wrote about embracing their culture, loving their friends, etc. And then there was that one kid who recited a lifestyle poem which compared fat people to beached whales and said that people who don't work out will die before they're 20. High school junior English class. An easy 6/7 years ago, so details are fuzzy, but we had weeks to prepare a presentation alongside an informative essay that we wrote. Weeks of in-class time, like 3-4 weeks of full 5-day, 50-minute classes for this essay, presentation, and the actual presenting. This kid in the class decided to write about the problems of procrastination. For the essay, it was a few sentences, something like, I procrastinated and this was the result. Nothing done, etc. The presentation, a few slides, all white with the default texts and sizes, and it was something along the same lines of, I have nothing prepared because my topic is procrastination. The teacher was disturbingly unimpressed and the kid threw such a fit about falling this major project. Seriously, it was a hefty portion of the class that he transferred out of the class. He pulled a gamble and lost so hard, probably thought he was being witty or some such. Student gave a presentation on the need to strap laser beams to deer heads that trigger sonic waves so that the deer are detracted from crossing highways. Context: I wasn't the grading teacher, but I was asked to supervise the teacher. Theme was supposed to be on how to solve a problem youth is facing. X. How to be a solutionary. Student was in 10th grade. This was a roller coaster read. I've told this on Reddit a few times, but it's truly unforgettable. Smart kid in the class was giving a deeply sourced PowerPoint presentation on religion in Europe. He opens up his files, proceeds to click on his project named Enga. He says clearly I wasn't really paying any attention when I named my file. He gives a presentation. He stutters and sweats bullets while we watch in utter disbelief. The word is sitting there on the top of the file heading the whole time. This was during a study abroad semester while attending a cultural communication class. He had to rot in his own crap after that. One time my friend had to go to his crap I don't care about folder to open a project in front of the whole class and teacher. In sophomore year of high school, we had to do a presentation on a story memory of ours and bring something in to show the class. A guy did it on his addiction to pee and played Christian rock for us. It was awkward. I was in a Japanese film class for a credit I needed and the final project was some open-ended paper where you got to choose the topic and our Japanese-born teacher told us some story about a creepy neckbeard who did his on Japanese pee and how no one should do anything like that. Anyways, on the day it was due, the creepiest neckbeard stereotype I've ever seen, who was in my class, presented his long but cringe presentation on Japanese pee in the class that no one wanted to hear. Already knowing the teacher has seen this crap before and wasn't about it at all. Sophomore year of high school, we were tasked with bringing in an object from home and giving a presentation on why the object explains you as a person. Kid brought in a knife, not a big one, but a knife nonetheless. He actually gave a decent presentation, but ended getting expelled because of it later that day. We were supposed to have Arnold Schwarzenegger come to our school sometime around 1999 or 2000. Principal was hyping it up for weeks. Then about 4 days before his arrival it was announced on Friday that he wasn't coming. Fast forward to Monday, during morning announcements it's announced he's changed his mind and is coming to our school tomorrow as planned. Come Tuesday morning everyone is excited. We're all amped to meet the Terminator. A handful of parents even came with VHS copies of his movies. Posters, act. We're all going to our gym auditorium, taking our seats. Principal takes the stage, takes the moment to make some announcements. Award honor roll. Perfect attendance, act. Finally she starts hyping up around Schwarzenegger. Everyone is excited and on edge when she basically says here's Arnie, and it's the vice principal in a leather jacket holding a shotgun, not a toy one either, and spends 30-40 minutes trying to hype us up for FC80, all the while doing the absolute worst impression of Arnold Schwarzenegger I've ever heard. Once we realized Arnold wasn't there, people start shouting, screaming at the principals for lying to us, along with some of the parents who came to this. I do hope someone has footage of this meltdown of a bunch of K5 kids shouting and screaming at the principals because Arnold Schwarzenegger didn't come to our school, because I clearly remember 2-3 people having camcorders. What black market existed in your school? Teachers punished us by making us write "I will refrain from extemporaneous vocalization during valuable pedagogical opportunities" 50 or 100 times as homework. So over the summer we would do up a few hundred sheets of that, and we could sell or use them, as necessary. Even the teachers and Simpsons were smart enough to change up the phrase. I sold P-Mags I'd acquire after Japanese businessmen would leave them in their motel rooms. The cafeteria, not school run, kind of just a cafe inside the school, would charge $3 for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So one girl kept the ingredients in her locker and charged $1. When the school caught wind and shut it down, they tried to guilt us all by saying how the cafeteria was someone's livelihood and we were taking away from that. But like, $4 for peanut butter? The market adjusts. This is tyrannical regulation. A P-ring. Kids would find their dad's VHS pornos or magazines and sell them to this kid. Then he'd turn around and sell it for profit. Funny thing is that when the principal caught wind of it and found all the pee in his locker but the money wasn't there, the kid used the locker under his and hid it all in the bottom. The pee hustler dude is now a cybersecurity analyst. I asked him at our reunion how much he thought he made back then. He claims $900 in 4 months. Drugs and soda. Same dude too. If you bought a soda from him during school he'd know you weren't a narc and would then sell you weed after. My mum owned a sweet shop and sweets were banned in our school as we had to be healthy meals and all that. So she'd constantly give me bags of sweets to smuggle in and sell every day at dinner. Made an absolute bomb. Made an absolute bomb. Starts with candy dealing, moves on to terrorism. I used to sell bootleg movies in high school. Not the kind of bootleg where you take a video camera into a theater, but I knew someone who kept getting early versions of movies that I guess are sent to theaters. They had some message about it being for screening purposes only, internal use. I don't remember exactly, and giving them to me. I'd burn a bunch of copies and sell them to people for $5. They were high quality and still early in theaters. They're called screeners. Our high school had an internet filter. An enterprising friend of mine set up a free BSD server in his basement and put together some 256 millibars flash drives with an executable version of Firefox. Could run directly from the flash drive without installs and a SSH client. You could plug it in, connect SSH, then use the server as a proxy for all the Firefox traffic and get around any website you wanted. Those flash drives were a hot commodity, let me tell you. You could set up in the library and just start casually browsing a banned website, and people would start coming up and asking how you could do it. Iodized salt and simple black pepper in the lunchroom. I'm not kidding. This was around 2004, USA. Our cafeteria coordinator was trying to do everything healthy and by government rules, so no added salt. Bogus, but whatever. But she also took the pepper too. Kids in my school didn't really pack lunches, as most of us got reduced lunch. I was P, as they just boiled canned veggies and gave them to you in a bowl with the juice, and wasn't going to stand for it. I was also a huge butthole in high school, so I made a plan. I bought salt and pepper shakers and put them in a zippy bag to carry in my backpack. I broke them out at lunch every day, and shared with about 70 kids. We made it through for about 3 months, and then they finally caught on who had them. I got silent lunch detention in a separate room for a week, and I made sure I put my salt and pepper out on my table every day. But then, when I came back to the normal lunchroom, like 30 people had salt and pepper shakers. Shakers everywhere, and the coordinator was P. Oh, it makes me laugh even today. She still refused to put out salt and pepper, but we all had it anyway. It continued until I graduated from there. PlayStation 1 and 2, memory cards. Stuck on a boss, want the treasures without having to beat the game on ultra hard? There was a guy who in my grade who, for a fee, would play any game and get where you wanted to be, then give you a memory card to copy over the save file. Naturally you had to return the memory card to keep the ball rolling for everyone. The OG pro gamer. In 5th grade I sold fairies to every single one of my classmates for $1 each. I gave them names and backstories and drew little portraits of each, then would toss them an invisible fairy and then collect from the next sucker. Freelance artist. PPPs, positive participation points. These were little yellow tickets that teachers handed out to students who were participating positively. Every month there would be class-wide and school-wide draws for prizes. The more PPPs you had, the greater your chance of winning was. Didn't take long for kids to copy the template in Word and start selling stacks of PPPs. This feels like it's straight out of Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I forget which book, but when the teachers used to give out points for being nice and people would just use the photocopy room to print out stacks of them. JanSport book bag strings. I was in school when JanSport backpacks became popular, at least in NYC they were, and one of the things everyone loved were the strings on the zippers. It became a huge problem where students were stealing strings off of others and either hoarding them or selling them. The solution became using a lighter to partially melt your strings together so they couldn't be untied without breaking them. Leaving your book bag unattended anywhere was the equivalent of leaving your car parked in the wrong neighborhood in 70s NYC. Just remembered I ran a short-lived market selling scientific calculators back in high school as well. I actually found where the school stored theirs and was stealing them little by little. I'm not proud of it, but my morals were very loosey-goosey back then. That is the most specific weird thing ever. Money is money, I guess. I studied in a boarding school, and we had a black market for acorns. Yes, acorns. Kids would collect the acorns from the ground, paint and shape them so that they spin like Beyblades. The other kids would buy them to compete in the acorn battle, which is similar to Beyblade. That's freaking rad though, and this will be my gig when the AI revolution resets us to rural low-tech lifestyles. In 8th grade, 2001, I got a Playboy from my older sister's BF. I cut out the nudes and sold them one at a time to the rest of the guys I knew. A $5 magazine turned into close on $50. I didn't get caught, but a few days later another kid tried the same thing with one he stole from his dad's stash. He was caught. School tells his dad. Dad is usually pee off about it. Turns out it's dad's favorite issue BC. It was Cindy Crawford in the centerfold. This is an actual problem with antiquarian books, especially ones with maps. Originally we only had vending machines in the field house, so people would give jocks money to go get them snacks and sodas. Eventually it became sort of like a service, with a fee of course. Some kids mimicked it with junk food from the convenience stores and it became a black market of the rarest candies. Some kids were peddling stuff from Japan, others from the UK. It was a high stakes candy market of the best stuff. Ginger flavored Kit Kats, pear drops, Maltesers, black currant chews, and more. Eventually the faculty began to notice strange ongoings on and alerted the principal, which found the whole thing rather amusing. A few weeks later, we had vending machines throughout the school, but for that one semester, it was a lawless land. Smart principal, he could have done what many would have done, crack down on the sellers, but instead he just undercut the market and dealt with the issue having undergone less hassle. Slime in middle school. The school banned selling slime so people would sell in the hallways or under the table during class. Oh man, I was our high school black market. My sophomore year I believe, the school took all unhealthy snacks and drinks out of the vending machines. Candy, soda. So I stepped up and filled the gap until I graduated. I started carrying around a backpack full to the brim with various full-size candy bars and sodas, all of which I would sell for $1. The sodas were the real moneymaker. I could get a 12-pack for $3 and make 300% profit. On a good day I would generally make around $10, and usually at the very least $3 or $4. The school did give me warnings a few times when they did locker checks and found several boxes of soda and candy bars, but I just claimed they were for me, and nothing came of it. As a senior gift for my ski team, the underclassmen gave me a creepy trench coat from which to peddle my wares. It was great. The year after I left, another kid on the ski team stepped up and started offering the same service. I've been told. Makes me happy to have left something of a legacy. I did this too. Except just the pops, no candy bars. I used to buy 24 packs of pop for about $7 and sold them for $1 each. I usually had to restock 2-3 times a week, cause we had around 1200 kids at that school. Made frickin' bank, it was nice. Our school banned scented gel pens. For some reason, we ran that crap like a prohibition era speakeasy for about 3 months. Anything banned becomes an instant commodity. For some reason kids in my school decided that SX wax, surfboard wax, was cool to chew on. The school banned it. Suddenly everyone was buying and selling SX wax. This was in Colorado, very far from any surf. The 80s were a weird time. In high school, a kid on the wrestling team had parents who constantly went out of town on business. So he drained their swimming pool and would host fight nights with the fights in the pool. It was called Beat That Butt. He facilitated betting and made himself more money than a high school kid should have. He tried to recruit anyone in the school who looked like they could hold their own in a fight. Eventually bands started playing at them and he started burning CDs of each event's music. They were printed and numbered so each one looked like the Now That's What I Call Music CDs, but instead of Now they said BTA. Source was in a band that was asked to play. We declined. He didn't empty and refill the pool for each event. He emptied it once and it stayed empty, but his parents wouldn't have noticed nor cared either way. It might have been called Whoop That Butt. I dunno. It's been a while. I don't know about black market, but we had 2 places you could be during recess, the gym or the playground. During the winter the go-to was the gym. Underneath the bleachers in the gym we legitimately had a Pokemon Yu-Gi-Oh gambling ring in which kids would put up their lunch money. I later found out from one of the kids who ran this little exchange that it was actually heavily rigged. Shocker. Bubblegum and chewing gum. It was in middle school. Huge supply for chewing gum. Down the road there was a little cafe that sold those 5 packs of gum for 10 cents. I walked in with a $5 bill and bought as many as I wanted. I sold each stick at 25 cents each and 50 cents for Big Red. I made a huge profit. People started getting jealous and I got into a few fights over the amount of gum I was selling. Finally, the school caught on and told the store not to sell gum to students anymore, and thus my days as a gum dealer ended. Only on Reddit can you find someone as a gum dealer. Not really black market, but I hope that counts. When I was in middle school, Beyblade was hyped. I was into it too and found out that there are way newer ones in Japan but not here. Looked further and found fakes that looked almost like the real ones but way cheaper. You know where this is getting. Bought some for me to create interest in them. Showed them the fake boxes all in Japanese so they thought it's real and bought a bunch of them. I made something between 400-500 euros in half a year. Was trying to think of a let it rip joke about how you rip those kids off, but I give up. Well, in college I happened to know all the people that could get me every drug imaginable. Like, forget that we also had chemical engineering students, one of which got caught making high quality M to pay his student loans. Breaking Bad spiritual sequel confirmed. Context: I went to an international school where everyone is rich as frick. So one day in first grade I brought some candy to school and this rich white kid offered me €1 for a 10-cent sweet. This kept on happening for a week. At that point I started buying more candy and bringing it to school. I was filling my pencil case with candy and hiding the money I got from kids in a special rack that I made in my bag with a knife. I carried this on for 2 years until one time my mom was cleaning my bag so the cut and put her hand in and to her surprise there was approx 1,000 euros. My parents beat me so hard I have never tried selling anything ever again. I was one of the first kids in my high school to have a scanner. This was back in the middle 90s and people just didn't really have them. My family did. Student parking passes were $150 each. I bought one and then scanned it and made duplicates that I would sell for $75 each. They looked okay but the school never really checked them that good. They just wanted to see the little thing hanging from your rearview mirror and that it was the right color. The teachers had a different colored one. I stopped doing it after more people had parking passes than there were spaces in the lot. Some people made a lot of money in middle school from selling slime. There was also the obvious vape sellers, but slime interests me more. Kids paid $0.45 for lunch but teachers paid $1.25. Seniors got paper trays and were allowed to eat anywhere on campus. Teachers would pay kids $1 and get lunch delivered. We had these sherbet straws called pixie sticks, chewing gum, and any trading card. We also had this gambling game that involved getting your coin as close to the wall as possible. Liar's poker with the serial number on dollar bills. I would literally trade bills with my dad till I found one with a grip of aces. Took him 3 months to get curious. Took him 20 minutes to calm down after learning of my gambling with them like that. Took 2 minutes to let him know I had a net positive of around $80. He then proceeded to slip me bills with good number sets. My bus driver in elementary school used to sell Jolly Rancher lollipops on the bus. He wouldn't sell them until we were off school property. The story was he spent time in prison. We called him Slaughter. He had a deep scar that went down the right side of his face. This sounds like a story from the book The Candy Store. Collars. My school required uniforms, namely a polo or button-down shirt with a collar on it. You were allowed to wear a shirt or a sweater over that collared shirt, but you had to have the collar showing at all times. At some point someone got the bright idea to go to a thrift store, buy a bunch of cheap collared shirts, and cut them off. You could then just stick it in whatever shirt you were wearing and bam, it looked like you had a collared shirt on. Blow pops. No, that's not an autocorrect thing. Blow pops. The candy suckers with gum inside. This was high school. We were kinda sheltered. LOL. I commented further down before I saw this. My brother used to sell blow pops in the early 90s. He would buy boxes of 100 for like $4 and sell them for 25 cents each. He made a killing. Homemade slime. Kids in my middle school bought and sold this like some kind of drug deal. Huge fights broke out as kids failed to follow up on various IOUs, some as high as $20. It was wild. I was in elementary school during the beginning of Simpsons mania. For some odd reason, a black market emerged of drawings of Simpsons characters. Bart, Lisa, Homer, Marge. A sheet of their heads would fetch like 25 cents. A $1 got you something more elaborate. It got so bad our school made announcements and cracked down on the trade. Even drawing a Simpsons character on a piece of paper would result in a teacher, staffer, whatever snatching it from you. No questions asked. In junior high, it was blue raspberry blow pops. Our school was next to a bulk store, so kids would get boxes for a few bucks and sell them for 25 cents a pop. A much better way to spend a quarter-imo. I would get like 50 people a day asking me to airdrop Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse, but I got it from someone else who airdropped it to me first. Rightfully so. That movie is dang near perfect. Mountain Dew, one dealer. He makes around $3K a year. Every season he buys out the store of all the special drinks, i.e. Liberty Brew, Holiday Brew, etc., and sells them $1 for $1 or $2.50 for $3. The kid's entrepreneur. I'm glad I know him as a friend so I get special deals. Kool-Aid gummy bears. It started out in middle school with a single friend of mine selling them in little Ziploc bags for about $4 or so. In high school, his older brother, the cook, would cook entire potfuls and give my friend and his friends, the distributors, hundreds to sell at different high schools in the area. Some sold 200 bags in a day. I've tried them twice or so and I must say, they are pretty delicious. The quality improved tons over the 5 years this went on as well. Beta Fish Fight Club. We had open campus lunch so kids would go to the local PetSmart, buy 2 beta fish, sell them to whoever wanted to fight that day, and they would dump the 2 fish in the toilets to fight. Beta fish are notoriously known for having to be kept alone because they'll rip the other fish to fricking shreds. The winner would get flushed down the toilet. So glad I never experienced that stuff. Public school in America is weird. Just want to say I never supported this. It is fricked up, but selling beta fish to fight was a legit black market at my school. And this is why you now have to be 18 plus to get any pet from PetSmart Petco. Smelly pencils. I crap you not. I had it for a fundraiser in high school for our band trip. Walked into the middle school for an hour every day for 2 weeks. My band instructor had to reorder by Wednesday of the first week. I funded about 4 people alone thanks to middle school kids lining up to buy 5-10 at a time. To be fair, Smensels were the crap. Not a black market but a crustacean underground railroad. First a little background. The sophomore biology class at my high school would dissect crawfish as part of the curriculum. The crawfish were kept in buckets of formaldehyde at the back of the classroom on the ground. Anyone could reach into these buckets and pull a crawfish out while the teachers. It was a weird combined class with 2 teachers because reasons IDK. Backs were turned and no one would be the wiser. I had some friends who had acquired the locker combination to a girl in our group they liked to pull pranks on. One of which was making a mess in her locker with the cherry on top being a stolen crawfish claw placed in the locker among other things. Well, my friend D thought it was hilarious how easy obtaining the claw was that he wanted to see if he could take a whole crawfish without being noticed, which led to how many can be liberated before it's noticed. As the weeks went by, D heroically put himself in harm's way to liberate as many scared dead crawfish to freedom as he could. Each time, D would bring an empty soda bottle to class. When the time was right, he would fill it with formaldehyde to recreate what they are used to. The little guys need to be comfortable after all, and place a crustacean in the bottle. At the end of class he would smuggle them out with no regard for his own safety. By the end of the school year, D had liberated close to 10 crawfish and rehoused them successfully into an empty locker where some say they reside happily to this day. TLDR, I invented softcore flesh trade when I was in kindergarten. I discovered my friend, a girl, didn't have a dong. That was the most freaking mind-blowing thing ever. So I invite my male friends to see her. They were even more mind-blown than me. The next day they asked her to see the lack of dong again, but she refused because she wasn't friends with them. So they came to me and offered me some candy and bubble gum to ask her. Obviously I quickly turned this into a business opportunity, and by the end of the day I had more candy than I could carry in my rather large pockets. I don't think there was anybody in that kindergarten that day, boys, who didn't get to enjoy the view of a smooth tea. I gave her a cut too for every client. The principles of fairness and integrity have always been a huge part of my upbringing. The next day parents were called. Little Porna Sonic got yelled at a lot. By the principal of the kindergarten. By her parents. By his parents. Candy had been confiscated. Rights of small and medium entrepreneurs meant nothing in that particular institution. I was pretty amused by this for the first half. Then, halfway through, I realized that my daughter starts kindergarten next week. You bastard. Somewhat related, but when I was in college I ran a free, illegal bar for my friends out of my dorm room using alcohol that I stole. I had a whole system worked out for stealing the booze from this big grocery store chain, and the entire time none of the employees suspected a thing. I made friends with a bunch of them and they would always say hi to me and chat whenever I would go, which was about 2-3 times a week. I actually did get caught for the stealing, but not at that grocery store. Only when I tried to do it at Target back home in Chicago. I got arrested for that and felt really stupid for what I was doing, so I gave up shoplifting. However, I never got in trouble for my bar and I had a lot of fun mixing drinks for my friends. Also made my room the spot to hang out before going to hit the parties later on. Sold Playboy mags to classmates for alcohol when I was 12-13 years of age. It was quite an easy economy. Sunday mornings at 7:30 AM I'd go to the newsagents when no one would be there, pick up a bunch of the adult mags from the understanding newsagent, who realized I was selling them to classmates. Monday morning, distribute them to classmates who bartered with alcohol. So, I was going into school with 3-4 magazines, and 3-4 classmates were coming into class Monday mornings with bottles of beer alcohol in their school bags to trade. Just thinking back, I wish I had sold the alcohol onwards, frick. Good time though. Some funny stories from classes where I knew someone had alcohol in their bags before the trade went down, and could have a bit of fun in class with the teacher. Who realized I was selling them to classmates. When you are buying huge amounts, they can tell by your wrist and forearm size if you are a user or a reseller. Rabbit pelts. In 5th grade we went to an Indian Mounds camp, and in the gift shop they had rabbit pelts. One kid bought a ton of them and then sold them at a higher markup once we got back to school. He was making good money until the teachers found out. All kinds of software. It started with stacks of diskettes containing MS-DOS 6.22 or games like Stunts and Hot Rod and Leisure Suit Larry. Later we started burning CDs, and at some time Twilight CDs started going around. Good times. My friend sold spring rolls. His family was Vietnamese, and they were awesome. He started in grade 9, but by grade 10 had to start taking actual orders during the week and sell any leftovers every Thursday. He did this weekly and was killing it. Much like other comments, selling food at my HS wasn't permitted as we had a cafeteria. My friend was called down to the office by the principal during his math class. We thought it was because he was in trouble, but the principal actually just placed a big order for an event or something. He got away with it. After we graduated he became a chef and I got a job dishwashing at the same restaurant. I asked how much he made. He wouldn't tell me how much he profited himself, but he donated $4,000 to charity. What is the dumbest thing you got punished for in school? Watching 3 kids play tag on the playground. It's against the rules. Teacher thought I was with them. I had to spend recess sitting on a log. Running a M lab. I wasn't. I had a bunch of chemicals for a photography class that I was student teaching in my locker during my senior year. Someone saw them, called 911. I was pulled out of class by police and arrested. They genuinely thought that I was cooking M in my locker. Wouldn't let me call my lab supervisor to confirm that they were for class. When the narcotics team showed up they basically just facepalmed and told the cops to let me go. I like to imagine you were like 6 at the time. A teacher in my school said that Orlando was the state capital of Florida. I corrected him. He raised an eyebrow and said, "I think you'll find I'm right," before continuing. I said, "No, sir, it's definitely Tallahassee." His retort of, "I'm the one with the degree in geography" was met with "then you'd think you'd know" landed me in detention. When I was 12 I became ill and had to take time off school. I was off for 3 months straight before going back on a part-time timetable. The slightest bit of exercise would leave me exhausted, I lost weight from not being able to eat, and I looked terrible. So why did I get into trouble? For not taking part in cross-country running. I wasn't alone that day, the girl with a broken leg also got into trouble. My hair gets highlights in it if I spend a lot of time in the sun. I came back to school after a 2-week beach holiday and got detention because I had colored my hair, even though the sun had bleached it. My lips go purple if it's cold, even if I'm not particularly cold in myself. I got a few detentions for wearing makeup before my mum phoned up and complained. The school provided bus being late. When the teacher who handed out the detentions was confronted by a large number of parents' complaints, she responded with "not my problem." My school would make an announcement when they knew a bus would be late. Principal would come over the PA and say something like, "Bus 72 and 16 are late this morning, please excuse any tardy students." You would think other schools would do it too. Got suspended for responding to the prompt "what one item would you bring with you if you were a pioneer on the Oregon Trail with a rifle and bullets?" I was in the 3rd grade. Dad took me squirrel hunting on the day I was suspended. Turned out better than expected. That's not only stupid to punish you but is probably one of the best things to take. In high school, the year I got there was the year they instituted a rule that you had to display your id at all times while at school. If you didn't have your id out, you could get detention. Due to reasons, I got to school about an hour before first bell and had zero way of getting back home or getting anything from home. Well, until the end of school, of course. So I get to school and realize, oh noes, I forgot my id at home. Well, no problem, I'll just go to the office and get a temp one. Welp. Turns out I should have tried to make it through the day without my id, because I got detention anyway, and I knew that I had a greater than 95% chance of making it through the day without anyone who cared noticing I didn't have my id out. But no, I tried to do the right thing. Well, frick you school, you taught me a terrible lesson. I went to an extremely conservative Baptist high school in Guam. I was punished for some pretty insane things. Hair being too spiky, singing Feliz Navidad during Christmas time, too worldly of a song, and getting caught with DVDs of mainstream movies. I was eventually expelled when a group of the super religious students sold me out for drinking a beer at a friend's birthday party on a weekend. At this time the drinking age in Guam was 18. I was 18 when drinking said beer. 4th grade history, talking about the pioneers moving into the American West in the 1800s. The assignment was to come up with a list of things you would pack in your wagon if you were moving 1,000 miles into the wilderness. All of the kids in the class had the usual stuff: food, clothes, medicine, a tent, blankets, etc. A few of us, including myself, had toilet paper on the list because why wouldn't we have it on the list? Toilet paper is a perfectly reasonable thing to pack, right? Anyway, toilet paper offended our teacher's Puritan sensibilities and everybody who listed it went to the principal's office and got suspended from recess for a few days. In 3rd grade my mom had me do some experimental ADD medication thing that caused a bunch of weird tics and crap. Apparently I kept making some face, because my teacher drew 3 stars on a post-it note and whenever I made the face, she crossed off a star. I lost all 3 and got 3 days in detention for recess. Plot twist, I didn't actually have ADD. Downloading and printing the entire script to Interview with the Vampire. It took almost 10 days to print. This happened in 1995. They couldn't figure out how to stop it. I was suspended for a week. Working in IT, this is the only one that had me laugh out loud. I once coughed in an exam and the invigilator thought I said pedo when I did it. Fast forward 6 months and before mentioned teacher gets asked to leave and it emerges he had been getting way too friendly with young students. Funny thing is that I genuinely just coughed. Methinks he may have had a guilty conscience. Well, that's a little Freudian of him. I got detention for saying okay to my home economics teacher in middle school. Seriously, we were in class and she asked me to do something and I replied, politely, okay. The teacher has a detention board and a day later I see my first name on it. I have a very common name and, joking with her, went haha that's for me right. She said it was. I asked her what I did and she said it was because I replied okay to her when she asked me to do something and she hates when people do that. She just wants them to do it. I was stunned. I told her I wasn't going to detention. I got home and told my mom what happened. My teacher's son was in the same grade as my older sister, so my mom knew the teacher. She ended up calling her and the teacher apparently was fumbling over her words trying to justify the detention. The next day, she goes to me, "You served this detention right," as a wink wink nudge nudge type of thing. I said no and I'm not going to. She goes, "No, you served it right." I decided to just say sure and that was that. "You should have said okay." I was flirting with a girl I'd known since we were 4. Special needs kid got angry and punched me in the face. I got suspended for fighting. I forgot my swimming costume for PE, gym, and got a detention, even though our lesson didn't include swimming. I got an in-school suspension for not attending an optional assembly. Not only that, but because I was suspended, I got kicked out of the National Honors Society. I had my teacher's signed permission to stay in his room. We had a new principal who was trying to establish dominance. I've never hurt anyone, but I really wanted to punch his smug face. I really love music and thought that joining my elementary school's band was the coolest thing ever. However, I come from a low-income family, so my parents couldn't afford the $500 entry-level instrument, clarinet, for those wondering. Fortunately, my elementary school offers rentals to students who wish to learn how to play. The only thing we had to pay for was reeds. Awesome, right? Wrong. I was 9 years old and had never handled a clarinet in my life until that point, so I didn't know what a working clarinet sounds or looks like. The music teacher gave it to me and I was just happy to have an instrument of my own. So without suspecting anything, I went home to practice and had a ton of trouble blowing air into the thing whenever I had my fingers down to the 4th key. Forget about anything past that. I figured that it was just because I was new, so I didn't have the strength of breath to blow hard enough to go past the 4th key. About 2 weeks later, the music teacher stops our practice and makes me play solo because she couldn't hear me. Of course, it's a piece that required me to go past the 4th key and I just couldn't do it. I told her that I didn't have the breath to blow hard enough, so she demands to see my clarinet and then proceeds to blow up on me, in front of the whole class, that I had damaged the thing so extensively that it's unplayable, that I had even had the nerve to try to repair it with hot glue where there were cracks along the barrel. I got sent to the principal's office and my parents were called. She proceeds to tell my parents and the principal that I must have used the clarinet like a sword, because there's no way the instrument could have sustained that much damage staying in its case. I was indignant and I cried and I said that I didn't do anything to it, but no one listened to me. And mind you, I was a straight A student. I wouldn't dare to do anything to it. So frick you, Mrs. Jones. You were supposed to inspect that clarinet before you gave it to me, so you knew dang well that it was fricked before you gave it to me. You planned all of that to get my family to pay for something that we couldn't afford because you fricked up at some point and didn't want to pay for it yourself. Frick you. TLDR. Music teacher gave naive 9-year-old a fricked up clarinet to make her responsible for the cost of repairing it. In 5th grade I was not allowed to go on our field trip and had to sit in a room alone reading the entire day, all because I fought back when another kid punched me in the eye. Frick zero tolerance policies. Little did they know, I love sitting in rooms alone reading. In-school suspension was my favorite thing. I got to do my schoolwork at my speed, which was much faster than the teacher's speed, and then read my book with peace and quiet. I got morning detention for running my hand against the brick wall in middle school. I was talking to my girlfriend and wasn't paying attention and just dragging my hand along the wall as I walked down. Supposedly the teacher thought I was banging on the walls. Got suspended for throwing paper airplanes in elementary school. Also, my little brother's friend is in elementary school and he got in trouble for sexual harassments for saying this roses are red, violets are blue, no girl on earth is prettier than you. Misogynist pig. For me, it was whole class detentions. I was always the quiet kid who would get on with work and was rarely disruptive in class. But most of the teachers were well aware of this. but sometimes I would end up in detention because some people were misbehaving and the teacher simply held the entire class back, including the well-behaved ones. It happened quite a few times and I really hated it. The justification was that the good kids would pressure the bad kids. Somehow, how teachers thought a shy, quiet kid like me could pressure the class dickheads to keep quiet, I really don't know. I got jumped, unprovoked, by a spiteful girl. I didn't initiate the fight or anything, but I still got suspended for 5 days. Stupid school rules. No tolerance policies, or whatever they are called, are stupid. If someone hits you, you're going to get punished anyway, so you may as well just hit back. First year of high school, only been at the school for about 7 or 8 weeks and I got sent to the focus room, what we call detention pretty much, for wearing black socks instead of blue or white. I went to a public high school and it was the principal that saw me and she had to literally get on her hands and knees to check the color. I was once stabbed in elementary school and I got a detention for instigating it. Apparently don't stab me is classified as instigation. Nothing. My 4th grade teacher was deliberately giving me lower grades for no real apparent reason. My dad actually took a night to calculate the grades I was making with all the homeworks and tests and things I had, and said I was actually making A's and B's. I found out my cousin was considering suicide, so I acquired access to the faculty chat program and contacted my counselor because my teacher would not let me leave. I was able to get the situation resolved, but was suspended because I accessed programs I weren't allowed to. I would have just walked out of class. Frick that teacher not letting you leave. I actually have a great story on this one. In 4th grade, or something, I had this old bee of a teacher we all really hated. Let's call her Catherine, her actual name. So I was hanging out in the schoolyard when some 1st graders came running towards me and kicked me in the nuts, with absolutely no reason whatsoever. So I started crying and screaming from the unbearable pain I was in. Catherine comes running and starts screaming at me for making a scene. She starts screaming at a little kid who just got his nuts kicked far up his stomach. So I scream right back at her, and she asks me if I wanted to move this whole discussion to the principal's office, knowing I was being treated extremely wrong. My answer is of course yes. Catherine ended up getting yelled at by the principal for 20 minutes or so, and I got to go home 3 hours before school ended. Best day ever. Man, I hate this crap. When I was 10 I hyperextended my knee in the yard just outside the principal's office. She went crazy at me for causing a scene when I was screaming and writhing in pain. I caught her eye quite a few times in the next couple weeks as I made my way around on my crutches. A buddy of mine once had 10% of his grade lowered on a report because when he stapled them together, he did it horizontally instead of at a 45-degree angle. I thought that was ridiculous but couldn't help laughing. My French teacher did not like me for some reason I could never guess. Anyway, one day during her exam she came to my desk and accused me of cheating when I wasn't doing anything wrong. So, I protested and said I am not cheating. She then proceeded to took away my sheet and asked me questions on test verbally. I replied correctly to all her questions. Now that she knew that she got nothing on me, she wrote -5 on my sheet because of me daring to protest. At some point these power tripping teachers need to just stop. When every kid in class is watching her be a dumbass, she's losing more respect than she's gaining by being a C. In elementary school a friend and I were written up for having a food fight. We were sliding an apple slice across the table to each other. The lunch monitor after school supervisor helicopter parent flipped crap and started screaming at us and dragged us to the principal. Once I got home my dad whooped me and it peed me off pretty good. I mean I did a lot of dumb crap in elementary school that warranted whoopings, but this one was just dumb. In 2nd grade, 1993, I dressed up as Aladdin for Halloween. My grandmother worked hard to make the costume as authentic as possible, down to the little patch on the leg. Everyone complimented me on the costume and I was riding high. Then I heard sobbing. Some little crap named John, a crybaby and overall crap student, also dressed as Aladdin, but his costume was garbage. No fez, just an off-color purple vest and some tan sweatpants. He was weeping uncontrollably because my costume was better. He ran and hid in the coat room. My teacher flipped her crap on me and made me apologize to him. I didn't do anything wrong. I just had a better costume. I reluctantly apologized to the little crap, shook his hand, and was forced to remove my costume and let him wear his. Frick that kid. This is just the opposite way of dealing with a problem. The kid now thinks that if he cries hard and loud enough, he will get what he wants. When I was in 4th grade, I was given detention for reading books too quickly. The teacher had divided the books by difficulty, and she thought I was stupid, so she put me at the lowest reading level. Even though I was one of the smartest students in the class, I finished all of the books within the course of about 2 weeks. When I told her that I was finished with them and would like to start reading the more difficult books, she called me a liar and gave me a week's worth of detention, claiming there was no way that I could have read and understood those books so fast. I saw her a few years ago and she was surprised that I'm on the dean's list at my college, let alone at the college I'm attending. I'm graduating from college next year with the intention on going to medical school. I think I can freaking read. I got told off for doing well in practice exams. Apparently, had the teacher known I was reasonably intelligent and lazy rather than stupid, they could have helped me more. Even at 15, I didn't really think that was the way teaching was supposed to work. Got punished for being punished. Teacher kicked me out because I was a minute late, honestly. So I was chilling outside the class when the principal walks by and gives me an earful about delinquency and indiscipline. Real douchebag. Had a stick up his butt at the time and threatened to call my parents. Start spouting bulls on the phone, so I interrupted and told him that he cannot speak to my parents in such a way, especially when he is not speaking the truth. Gets frustrated and suspends me for 2 days. I have no idea what was wrong with him, but I enjoyed those 2 days. Aged 10, year 5 in England. About 100 of us are sat in the main hall having a music lesson. So she's trying to teach everyone to sing in rounds. I think that's what it's called, where you overlap lines with previous line etc. Anyway, we're doing a part that requires a few of us to sing in harmony, and much like J.K. Simmons in Whiplash, she notices someone is singing flat. She eventually whittles it down to me, and in front of everyone she says, "No, it's like this. In C, me, teacher, no, me, teacher, right, well if you're going to waste my time, I will waste yours." I spent my lunch break standing outside the staff room staring at the floor. I cannot sing. End of. I hate singing now, and I largely blame this on that stupid teacher that couldn't tell the difference between a kid being an and one with no talent. Thanks, Mrs. Hammond. I remember having a really crappy 4th grade teacher who sent me to the principal's office because I told her I didn't understand what the math question was asking. She asked me what part I didn't understand. I said all of it. She said I was lying and then punished me for it. On the bright side, the principal said I did nothing wrong and just let me hang out with her for the rest of the day. In grade 3, I said crap out loud when a friend pushed me and I scrapped my knee. Some random kid nearby heard and reported me, to which I got a 1-day suspension. Butthole. I went to a parochial school and the teacher gave demerits to 2 kids for having their eyes open during prayer. Think about it. So it's the last day of middle school. We're all headed down to the auditorium for the end of year award and whatever ceremony. Before we were leaving class to go, our teacher tells us we have to sit boy girl when we get down there. Now you can imagine our disappointment when we have all of our friends in there and we are told we can't sit next to them on the last day of school. Anyway, after the initial moans and groans, I asked her right before we left why we had to sit that way. Apparently it was the tipping point because she flipped out on me and told me to go sit in the principal's office during the ceremony. So I went down and sat in the office during the ceremony. The best part about this was that my dad was a teacher at the same school. He was in the ceremony and little did anyone know I was receiving the biggest award for perfect attendance throughout the whole 3 years of middle school. After they called my name several times, my teacher had to stand up and tell the whole school that I was in the office and wasn't there. Needless to say, my dad was pretty pissed when he saw me after school. I explained to him I didn't really do anything and he seemed to be more pissed at the other teacher after I explained. She was being a bee after all. That's kinda hilarious. The kid who was awarded best attendance wasn't there. I am from Germany and in 9th grade I had to do a presentation on the Waffen-SS. I did a lot of research because I was interested in history. My teacher, who didn't even study history, stopped my presentation when I started to talk about foreign volunteers in the SS. She said that this is a Nazi lie and that she was shocked that I believed that anyone who wasn't blonde and blue-eyed could go to the Waffen-SS. I honestly couldn't believe that she was angry because I simply mentioned this fact. I argued with her and got in trouble for questionable political views. After that I had to go to a Jewish museum and think about what I did and write an essay on Jews in Nazi Germany. When I asked other teachers about this topic, they hesitated to answer me and just didn't give me a reply. Really weird. In the 11th grade I had a similar case. I got a bad grade for describing how World War II broke out with all the details. The comment was unbelievable. Wrong. World War II broke out because Germany thought Jews are subhumans. The day I left this school was the best day of my life. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.